Hi, welcome back. Excuse the strange noises in the background. My dog is having a bit of an episode in the hallway, so you might hear some grunting and snuffling. That isn't me, by the way. He might even jump up and say hello if we're lucky. I've got a review of one of my favourite knife manufacturers. They're back with their latest model. It is Who. The Who V4. We've reviewed the V3 a couple of times. We've had a couple of different iterations of that, and it created a little bit of a stir because people kind of freak out that the blade can be flipped out and flipped back in again, and that's caused all kinds of consternation with people. But it is a sub 3-inch non-locking knife, so perfectly legal in the UK. There's an exemption in UK law for such a thing. It does not lock out. It's not an automatic knife. There's no spring assist or anything like that. And it is not a gravity knife, because if it was a gravity knife, you know, where's the gravity effect on there? There isn't one. So it does fall within UK EDC requirements. I really like them. For people that want a one-handed opening, kind of quick deploy and quick put away, handy utility blade, these things are really cool. They don't lock. They are a double detent mechanism, so they're not going to be something that you can kind of stab into an oak tree and you know, utilize to batten through massive amounts of firewood or anything like that. These are strictly for your normal everyday carry stuff that you'd be doing in the UK. Cutting string, ropes, opening up boxes, all that kind of thing. The usual stuff. Most of us are probably not Ray Mears on a bushcraft survival course. It's very unlikely you're going to utilise it for anything like that. And if you were to buy a knife for something like that, I would expect that you would buy a specific bushcrafting blade. So, you know, people kind of complain about UK EDC knives and say, oh, you know, what are they useful for? Well, they're useful for everything that you normally do on a daily basis in the UK, pretty much. So we have the V4. As usual, comes in a rather smart box, and they are numbered. I got number 200. And as per usual, they have this quality control where they've actually been hand signed off, which is always good to know. And then we open it up. I have had a look in here already. Box is lined with this protective material. At least you know when it gets shipped, everything's going to arrive in good fashion. We have a Who Knives hanky to add to the collection, and we have a little baggie that comes with it. We have some stickers. We have a little bit of information on Who Knives there, and then we have some information on the blade itself, which I will refer to in a minute. And then of course we have the knife. So this is the V4. We hold it up against a V3, if I can position them. They look basically exactly the same. The real difference is in the blade. That is the V3, if you remember that one. Kind of utilitarian, classic sort of blade on there. And it's been very useful. It's got that kind of false edge on top. But yeah, very useful for food prep, stuff like that. It's got that single point there. And then we have the V4, which I've got to say, I really like this blade. It's a Tanto style blade shape, so I actually find these a little bit more useful because you've got a couple of angles on there you can utilize for some craft type stuff. You've got a very useful sharp tip on there. You've got this angle down here. You can actually use them in that direction to kind of make some quite precise cuts with this piece here. And then of course you've got the large belly of the blade here. Let's see if they deviate at all in weight or specification. We'll take a look through. So they both have the TI handles on there. Really, really nice handles. As we've seen before, you have this cutaway here, which I've demonstrated several times now. Stops it from closing on your fingers. You can see there, it's actually utilising the back side of that flipper just to stop it closing on you. And then to shut it, it's just a flick down, break the detent on it. The detent is nice and strong, so you can flick them out. Very, very strong detent on there. You can see I'm putting quite a bit of pressure on, and then it just breaks away like so. It's actually fairly easy if you want to close it sensibly to just close it like so, break the detent and then shut it down. You can obviously flick it out with the thumb studs. You can also close it by keeping your fingers out the way and then just applying pressure up here. Shuts like so. And of course you can deploy with the back edge of this flipper like so. So you've got a number of options. The thumb studs are removable if you so wish. And a few people have said with the thumb studs that they're what stop the blade travelling forward. You can see on there that it isn't the thumb studs that actually block the blade, and I've used some of these for quite a while now. It would be very apparent if they did, because you would have wear on these thumb studs. You would have great big divots in here, because obviously every time it smacked into that, you know, it would just be wearing away the steel, versus the titanium would just wear the whole thing away. None of them have done that, but you can see anyway there's a gap between the two. I think it's just where people have seen these online. They're not the cheapest of things. They do attract some critique, you know, that whenever there's an expensive item online that people kind of like the look of and wish they could have, there's always going to be some critics out there that say, oh well, actually, you know, it's rubbish because of this, that and the other. And I think that it's one of those cases where they've just kind of picked on this thumb stud issue, saying that that's rubbish, you know, it's the thumb studs that block the closing, but actually it's not at all. It sits back into its detent there, and it just simply won't go any further. I can apply pressure on the top there and you cannot get any movement on that, and the thumb studs are not touching the handles at all. Very, very smooth, opens pretty much every time. If you want to get it to snap shut and kind of be funky when you close it as well, it is possible. You do sometimes get a little bit of bounce with it, like we see there. That's because the detent is so strong keeping it open, which is what you want, you know, that's keeping you safe, and it takes quite a lot of energy to overcome that detent. That would be the only criticism that I could possibly think of with these knives. If you wanted something that was just a kind of tool to flick quickly in and out like a fiddle toy, then there are probably other things on the market that would be a little bit more fiddleable. I don't know if that's a word, but this one I think is a lot safer because of the strength of that detent, and it's just much more of a utilitarian blade. You know, it's far better than some of the fiddly ones that are on the market. I do like them, they're a lot of fun and you can mess about with them and kind of just sit there flicking them in and out, but you know, they kind of lose a lot of their functional part, and it depends really what you want out of the thing in the first place. Weight wise, there is a difference. With the V4, if you're concerned about weight, we'll give it away. We won't rely on the instructions for that. Well, actually, let's see what they say in the instructions. So the V4 is supposed to weigh in at 93.42 grams, and the V3 is supposed to weigh in at 102.8 grams. We got some digital scales here. Grams for the V4, 95.3. So we're a little overweight. They gave 93.42. We're at 95.3. And then for the V3, which is supposed to be 102.8, a little bit overweight again, we're at 105.3. Now I should add that these are scales that I bought from Amazon to weigh my coffee with. I cannot clarify that they are calibrated instruments. You know, they were bought for like £25 off Amazon. They're actually pretty cool, USB rechargeable. I'll stick a link up below if anyone wants any. If you weigh coffee, they're awesome. So we'll take a look at blade length. That's something that's going to concern people in the UK. We need to be under 3 inches, which is, if I check, 76.2 millimeters. The cutting edge, I normally look at the entire blade just in case. I don't trust the cutting edge part of things. And we are at 67.2. Now depending on where we measure, I'm coming up with between 67 and just under 70. It actually specifies on here, so they're taking it from right back here to the tip, and they're specifying it as being 71.6. I can't actually get 71.6, I'm just below 70. It's certainly way below requirements you need for the UK. So we have deep carry pocket clip, extremely deep carry, as you can see, comes right off the back end, and that is also ambi, so you can actually swap that over if you so wish. I'm a left-hander, I carry this left side, and I just get on fine with it as it is. You can actually order different things for these online. You know, if you go on the site, I'll chuck a link up to who below. If you do buy one, you know, give them a shout and say that I sent you, and you can actually buy from them different handles, all kinds of kind of custom things, different size thumb studs, etc. So there's a little bit of a customizable option on some of this. I'm not entirely sure what they've got on the site at the moment, but I've certainly seen some pretty cool stuff on their Insta feed. I actually prefer this model. I love the blade shape, it looks really, really cool. I like the kind of faded TI effect of the handle there with that really, really bright Tanto point blade. Very, very cool looking indeed. We have, of course, the lanyard hole in the back, and that is straight through those slabs of TI. And, you know, that's one of the reasons that this thing is not cheap. They are incredibly well machined. They are beautiful, beautiful pieces with high grade materials. The titanium they use is TI 6AL-4V, and they use Bowler M390 blade steel, which is a really, really good blade steel. Very hard wearing, holds a good edge. I've been using these other two. I've actually got 2 of the V3s, as you can see. I've been using them for quite some time. This one's the newer of the 2 because it's got the kind of doled out blade finish as well, so it's all in one kind of style. And then this one is the oldest one. That's had a couple of sharpens and is still going absolutely strong, perfectly fine. They all have a choil on them so you can sharpen them up. That one you can see has had a bit more use, so it's actually a little bit more easy to kind of close up. It kind of shuts down a little bit easier than this brand new one here. This has hardly been used at all, so it's maybe a little bit stiffer, which is why it doesn't quite shut so easily. So let's get on to the bit that everyone complains about, which is the price, of course. We're looking at $175 for one of these. If you compare this to something like a Benchmade, that's not particularly expensive. You know, it depends what context you look at this in. If you compare it to buying a Swiss Army knife from the local ironmongers, yeah, it's probably going to be a bit pricey, but compared to some of the high-end manufacturers in the United States, this is probably on the lower end of things. I get why people complain, but it has got a lifetime warranty. Who Knives have now been going quite some time. They're really good guys to deal with. I know that they take their quality very seriously and they appreciate feedback that comes to them. So if you have an issue with your knife and you go back to those guys, they're going to give you personal service. They're going to make sure everything's sorted out. They're going to really want to know what went wrong with that, compared to maybe some of the much larger manufacturers who may take several months to respond to you and may or may not do anything about it. You know, I've certainly witnessed that before. It's also nice to buy something like this from someone in the UK rather than buying from overseas. You get a bit more provenance with these, because as you've seen, they're numbered, you know, there's kind of a limited amount of them, so always nice to be part of something like that. There's somewhat of a drop culture to it. Guys, I'll leave a link down below. Check out the Who Knives website. As always, mention me if you're buying one. I know that anyone who buys one of these will not regret it. If you need a pocket knife and you want something that's going to be really reliable and possibly last for the rest of your life, then I would strongly suggest one of these, because they are an absolute pleasure to own. Thanks for watching. Take care, guys. I'll catch you next time.